Welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Lace up those boots and sling on the pack for a romp through trails, short and long. With your host and Renaissance man, Doc. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail, dirtbags and hiker trash. I'm Doc, and this is the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Let's start off with a reminder. If you are enjoying the podcast, take just a minute, help us out. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, let's get to this week's guest who hiked the Pacific Crest Trail in 2021. And now I've talked to a lot of types of thru hikers on this podcast with all kinds of different sorts of angles and stories to share. Today, though, we're going to hear a story like no other. Welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod, Sean Powers. How's it going, Sean?
Good. I'm nervous. This is exciting.
It was quite a build-up, right? I mean, that's quite the intro, and I know you're going to live up to it. No pressure.
I don't know. I think you oversold it. It's I don't know. This is going to be one for the garbage.
All right. Now, hey, you thru hiked the PCT. We go by trail names here on the podcast, if at all possible. I'm Doc. It doesn't say that on my paycheck or my driver's license. I imagine that having been on the trail for 2,600 plus miles, you may have picked up a trail name.
Yes, my trail name is Shame, and it doesn't say that on my paycheck, but it says it all over my face.
Shame.
Shame.
Even better than the trail names are the stories behind the trail names. So I'm excited to hear the story behind Shame.
It was the first day. We got what is the lake called? It's like lagoon, or like the first lake from the border. It's kind of like the first stopping point, about 20 miles in. We get there, everybody's excited, everybody's thinking and talking about trail names, and I was like, "Hey, my name is Sean." She goes, "Shame? Your name is Shame?" I was like, "Yeah, I grew up Irish Catholic in the Midwest. I am Shame." So as I started to tell that story, we started to test out other things, but everyone's like, no, you're Shame. You're keeping that. And built up over time, told people I was like the traveling walking comedian, and just out of nowhere, I was like, yeah, this is kind of like my walk of shame. So very scripted, very awkward opening, but that's exactly how it happened. That person who named me that was Banana Legs. And funny enough, I have a tattoo of banana on my leg. So I was like, this is it's serendipity. It's conspiracy level thinking, but it full well-rounded.
So much to unpack right there, Sean. So much to unpack. Number one, why do you have a banana tattooed on your leg?
I don't know. I thought it was like funny. I like to do on both sides of my body, like a fun tattoo and a serious tattoo. So I've got like my PCT tattoo here, and then I've got a hot sauce for my taco meat because I've got a very weirdly hairy chest square. It's like a chest lawn.
If you're not watching this on
one
YouTube,
side,
if you're not watching this on YouTube, you're missing out. If you're just listening to this, you know what? Pause it right now. Stop. Move over to the YouTube feed and see as Sean is showing off his tattoos and his weirdly shaped patch of hair on his chest lawn. There you go, chest lawn. That's
if you
another
want to subscribe
right there, chest lawn.
Chest lawn.
Nice.
If you want to subscribe to my OnlyFans, up to you. And banana legs. So banana? I wanted to get 2 tattoos. I thought it was interesting to get one in like 2 languages I didn't know or understand. So I've got control in Hebrew on my left leg, and on my right leg in Arabic it just says bananas. Nobody ever knows what it is. Nobody's ever recognized it. Everyone's like, banana control, and I'm like, no, they're not connected, but they're kind of connected, but they're not really connected. So yeah, I could make a lot of crude, weird jokes about it, but we'll just charge through.
Okay. All right. Now, one of my fears with tattoos in foreign languages is that, I'm told by the tattoo artist, this is what it says. But then when we get out in the real world, I discover that, oh, lo and behold, this is not what that says. This says something else. Any concerns about that?
I think that would make it better. I hope it says like daddy's bitch or something bad. Do you have any tattoos?
A couple summers ago, I got a life-size tattoo of myself. It was very painful, but I think it came out pretty good.
Living in pain. I can see it in your face,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
behind the eyes.
yeah. Nice. So Shame, it's a great trail name because it's got a certain feel to it. It's one syllable. I'm a big proponent of short trail names. If you have a very long trail name, if something dangerous were happening and they had to get your full trail name out to get your attention, I mean, that could be disastrous. So I
Oh,
think
I would
Shame,
leave them dead for sure. Anything
mm,
with two syllables or more, dump it. I'm moving on.
right.
You're getting eaten by a bear. Bear is easy to say. If it was any other animal, still moving on. Um, Yelling out shame also might be an indication of, it might be counterintuitive, but it might cause people to look. If you yell help, people might look, people might want to try to help. But if you yell out shame, they're like, oh my God, something's interesting. The gossip's going on. I need to go see
Something
see what's
something
happening.
is going down. Something's going down. It involves shame. I am tuning in. Let's find out what's happening here.
Where does your trail name come from, Doc?
It's really not. I don't have a great story. It is, I have a doctorate, and so the guys I was hiking with called me Doc, and that's just
They should have just called you. What did you get your doctorate in?
educational leadership.
Should have just called you Det.
Yeah, very appropriate. Yes, that's right. With the doctoral stipend in my position, it'll pay for itself in about 40 years. So we're good.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, yeah, just chipping away at it.
I
Nice.
feel like I'm always 10 years either like I'm finally at the age where I finally have money. And if I had this money 10 years ago, I would have been great, but everything's more expensive now. And it's just like everything is always like just out of reach for me. It's like finally when I'm like, I'm ready to party, guys, let's go. Everybody's leaving.
Yeah, it's kind of like knowledge too. I mean, if I knew back when I was 16 what I know now, man, I would have been so dangerous. But with my current level of knowledge and my current state of being, it's not a whole lot of help.
I would have killed myself way earlier, just saved myself the time and the shame, the shame, if you will.
Nice. Shame on you. All right. Hey,
Yeah. Shame,
Shane,
shame.
have you had a chance to listen to the podcast before?
I'm so sorry.
No,
Not
it's
yet.
okay.
My
That's okay.
wife is
I
just
think
been
it's
a
better
woman.
sometimes. I think it's better sometimes if I have guests that have not listened to the podcast. They're just coming in fresh. It's going to be a unique perspective. So I only ask because I want to make sure that you are aware of a segment we have towards the end of the episode. We call our Pro Tip Insight of the Week. And that's where I'll turn to you and I'll say, Shame, what bit of trail wisdom can you share with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better? So don't be surprised.
Okay.
All right.
Um,
Don't give it away
I'm
now.
prepared. I'm prepared. I'm
Hang
not
on
going
to
to
it.
give it away.
Okay. Hang
I'm
on.
going to hold on to it. I'm actually not even going to share it because I do want to hang on to it. I'm going to take your advice and hang on to it and not give any advice.
Yeah. So if you have an urge to share it, if it comes up an appropriate place later on the podcast, but we're not to the pro tip, hang on to it. Don't use that self control you have.
No, you gotta, well, one, that I had to get it tattooed on my body, but two, if you ask my wife, I always come way too fast, way too early and in the wrong time. So it's just not my thing. Timing, and that's why I didn't pursue comedy, is just, I suck with timing.
All right. We are going to put the the explicit signifier in the podcast here.
Do you want me not to swear? I'm
I
so
realize
sorry.
it's sometimes swearing, to fully express, what we're talking about. It's appropriate, but it's not a problem just to push the E button. So no problem.
All right, since the E button is pushed, is cum a swear word? Is cum a bad word? Can you say cum? Dad, I said cum too many times.
It depends on the context. So I mean, yes, I think we've hit our limit there.
Okay, I won't say it anymore, and it does depend on the context.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm just.
At what point are you going to realize that this was a mistake for you?
I might already be there. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
The Must Bring Gear Review.
Hey, Shame, another feature we've been doing this season is the Must Bring Gear Review, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company 6 Moon Designs. And here's how it works. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike or a multi-month hike, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you've got a particular brand for that specific piece of gear, even better. So Shame, what is your must bring piece of gear? What do you have to have out there?
I'm gonna give a shout out to my Gorilla bag. I completely forgot the brand, but I know it was Gorilla's big yellow bag. And the reason I'm mentioning that, and I know it's sponsored by a different bag, so apologies there. Hopefully you don't
No,
lose
no,
your sponsorship.
no problem.
I had overloaded it and it ripped, and I kind of lied, and I was a total asshole. So I want to give a shout out and an apology because I was like, I've got a big social media following, and this bag ripped, and it said it could take this much. And I overpacked. I had like 40 pounds of ultralight gear in my ultralight bag, so it definitely wasn't ultralight, but was really excited about all of my ultralight things. Well, they even though I was a dick, or I'm sorry, I can't swear. Even though I was a bad person. They decided to send me a new bag completely free. They're like, hey, just, stop being a jerk. I got the new bag. It was at Kennedy Meadows, the Kennedy Meadows North. And there was this spot between Kennedy Meadows North and Tahoe where there was just a lot of snow. And people kept calling it the death chute. And at that time, I was listening to Katy Perry. I was just really into Katy Perry phase. I just went through these like big phases. And it was the song Dark Horse with Juicy J. And when I was listening to it, I was like, I am Juicy J. And I can't miss my moment. And I'm walking towards this death chute, and it's 100 feet down. And it's like pretty sheer. And I can see there's two pathways. And I was like, well, I'm not going to go down a little bit. I'm going to take the pathway with the most tread in it. And it started to go, and I slipped, and I was like, oh, no big deal. I'm going to use my hiking poles, and both my hiking poles fell out of my hands, and I slipped and shot down this tube. Dark Horse is screaming in my ears, and Juicy J is like rapping about being Jeffrey Dahmer, and I not listening to it all, but like I go from, oh, this is really going to hurt to, oh, this, I could break my leg, to finally like, oh, I'm going to die because I'm getting like 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour. I'm trying to kick my feet. My hiking poles are gone. I use my elbows to stop, and it completely, all the skin on both of my elbows just gone. So there's like two red streaks and like one weird brown streak right in the middle. But my bag completely held up. And it ripped a little bit where, like, understandably, but like the bag, like for the rest of the hike, I had that bag. It took like probably, like, I remember I shot up and I was like checking myself because I was just full of adrenaline. There's the blood over my hands, blood over my legs. And it took like 15 minutes to like go up and like grab my stuff. I can share a picture with you to give you some context. And then finally I see somebody walking across. I was like, hey, and they're like, oh my God, did you just fall down there? Because they could see like the big slip. And I was like way down there. Like, yes, I'm okay. Bloody. And I was like, could you wait for me? And they're like, yeah, of course. So like I slowly get up, I slowly cross. And then they're like helping me check. We did a little medical stuff. Most of my trail family was ahead of me. And I finally see them. They're like, holy crap, what happened to you? And I told them the whole story, and they're laughing at me, making fun of me. My whole, like, you could see my butt cheek, like all my clothes were ripped. The bag held up. And the fact that they had replaced that bag, it was like karma just coming to like wipe me in the butt. And I get to the hostel. I forget the hostel's name, but it's in Tahoe. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah, I don't remember the name, but I know about the hostel there.
We'll edit this in post. Just add it in post. I get to the room, and there's someone. I'm in the top bunk, and there's someone in the bottom bunk, and she had like all these like band-aids on. I was like, "Did you fall down the death chute?" And she's like, "Yes." And I was like, "Me too." So we like instantly trauma bonded over that, and her and her husband ended up coming to my comedy show way later. So it was a fun. That's the reason why I would recommend that bag. One, because they were super nice to me when I was a jerk to them. And two, it held up being like slid down 110 foot, like just death chute.
Again, a lot to unpack right there. I love this. We've got a couple of highlights. One is this is the earliest time in any podcast, any previous John Freaking Muir podcast episode, and we're on 200 plus. We're like on 220 episodes now. This is the earliest time we've had an apology in the podcast. So congratulations there, Shane. That's great. I also want to talk about the fact, if you load up a backpack with 40 pounds of ultralight, when does the quest stop, the quest to become ultralight stop. I mean, that there's something unusual there.
Oh yeah, it's just I'm a creature comfort. It didn't actually have 40 pounds. It was like 38 or 37. Like, but who's counting? I mean, you're the doc, so you want to get specific, but um, I had all this like comedy stuff. So I had like a little hand. I had all these like punny jokes. I was basically like carrot top, but if you know my personality, I'm more like a carrot bottom. And especially like carrot top is jacked at the end of this. At the end of this, I looked like rail skinny with like super jacked legs. So it definitely wasn't a carrot top. I was more of a carrot bottom. But
Got it. And that is a great image of you sliding down almost to your death. Could be to your death. Listening to Katy Perry and Juicy J with Dark Horse. I mean, what a way to go out.
I know. Hey, California, you only get one shot, and it's if your chance appears, you gotta take it.
Got to take it. And it was not lost on me that you had 2 red streaks and one brown streak in the middle. That's comedy gold right there.
Shitty comedy. Sorry,
Yes.
I keep swearing, but I mean,
yep. The E's already on the episode, so there you go.
Shame with a capital E.
All right, and that was probably one of the better stories associated with a must bring piece of gear. So kudos on that as well. And I love the fact that you trauma bonded on the trail. That's a new term. I have not heard that before.
I stole it from a coworker, and every time I say it, that's what everyone says. They're like, "Oh my God, I've never heard that." I'm taking that, so I cannot take credit for that. That goes out to anonymous coworker. We'll call him Sean Powers. I'm
Okay.
Shane.
Got it. All right.
It's the hiking pole.
All right, time for the hiking pole. Shame, you ready for this? These are 7 questions. They're going to help me give you a score on the sanity scale from 1 to 100. 1 being completely insane, 100 being completely sane. You have to know that there's an automatic 25-point deduction for anybody who's done one of the American long trails. So already your top score is 75.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If I were to ask your family or your family or friends, hey, where would you score Sean on a sanity scale from 1 to 100? Where do you think they put you?
They would score themselves at like a 100 that I make them insane because I was like practicing jokes. I'm constantly apologizing for stuff. If I am the record breaker of earliest apology, that does go into why my name is Shame. So if you ask them, they would rate themselves as insane for wanting to spend time with me. If they're going to rate me, I would say maybe a 20. Like sometimes I'm funny. Usually I'm just really annoying. I have little brother energy. So like I'm constantly needing attention, affirmations. I'm constantly apologizing to people. So overall, I would say a 20 because it's that like little endearing part that a little brother has is they drive you to the point of insanity and then you're about to burst and then you say something and you're like, you got me.
Little brother energy. I mean, the one-liners here are just rolling off the tongue. Now, just to be clear, the lower the score, the more insane you are. It's the sanity scale. The higher the score, the more sane you are. So is it 20 they would give you, or was it an 80 they give you?
No. They give me the 20. It's just sane enough. I said the wrong thing with them. They would give themselves a 0 after hanging out with me. They would give me the 20 to be like, you're just endearing enough to like not completely make me want to push you down a death chute. Mm-hmm. Maybe I was pushed. Maybe this is a conspiracy.
Right.
It's an inside job.
Now I have 2 sets of questions and I'm torn on which set to ask you. Set A has to do with traditional hiking questions. Set B has to do with the big issues facing our world right now. And you could probably spend an entire episode or maybe an entire podcast series on any one of these questions from set B. Because already you've got just comedy gold dripping off your lips. I'm torn which way to go. Usually with my first time interview with somebody who is a legitimate hiker, I would ask them the 7 questions having to do with hiking. But I don't know. It's a toss up right now.
Let's test it out because I think I might just be trying to force the funny at this point. Let's relax. So let's do a little A and B and see which one goes because I think I'm like just overwhelmed with the amount of people who have opinions about these world changing ideas, which is fine. Everybody's got an opinion. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm going to advance anything. I think I might make like a funny one-liner, but I'm not. We're not curing anything here. We're not
We're
solving
not
anything.
solving any problems here. No, got it.
I'm
Got it.
not the person to solve. So I might. Yeah, let's try. Let's try first one of A, first one of B, and then you're the doctor. You then prescribe it.
That, you know what? It might be a good rhythm. I might just go every other. I'll just alternate
Okay.
until we get to 7. And before we get to that, I think we need to clue everybody in as to where you are right now. I'm in Southern California. Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Bogota, Colombia.
Wow. I think this is my first interview with somebody in Colombia.
Nice.
I've done New Zealand, Germany, Croatia, UK, of course. But first time in Colombia.
Of course.
So, hey, of course, yeah.
Of course. Yeah, I lived in Guatemala for 3 years, Colombia for 3. And then with the pandemic came back, and that's what really like sparked my wanting to do the PCT. It was me and a bunch of divorced women who were really inspired by the movie and the book Wild. And I remember seeing that, and I grew up in the Midwest. So I'd never heard of anything like a long trail. Like I could make a joke there, but dump it. Let's move on. I told my family, I was like, hey, when I move back to the United States, I'm going to do this. And then I moved back. I had a little bit of money saved up, so I was like, I'm going to do it. I've also wanted to try stand-up comedy.
Put a pin in that. Put a pin in that, because
Yeah.
we're going to come back to that. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Let's get back to the hiking pole here. And
you
by the way,
you don't want me to use the C word. I don't want to use the C word, and I promise you I won't say it again.
now, were you in an ugly sweater contest earlier? Is that what you
yes.
did there?
Really excited about this. To the listeners out there, I told Doc I am massively hungover. I was going to a 12 beers of Christmas party where every 30 minutes you drink a beer, and I can't do it. I can't even like look at alcohol right now. I know it's a Thursday. I'm drunk for 2 reasons, or I'm hungover for 2 reasons. One, because I'm an alcoholic, and 2, there's a big holiday in Colombia called Dia de las Bolitas. So I'm with my wife is Colombian. We're with her family, partying, having fun, and ruined my day. Colombia has ruined my day.
12 beers of Christmas. 12 beers of Christmas. Those Colombians know how to do it. I have not heard of that, but you know what? That's intriguing. This might be a new family event for Doc and the crew.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Hey, back to the hiking pole. 7 questions. We're going to alternate. This is the first, another first on the John Freaking Muir pod. We are alternating between set A and set B. Enjoy, listeners. This is going to be good. Okay. Here we go. Question number 1 from set list A. Trekking poles? Trekking poles or no trekking poles?
Trekking poles for sure. Gives you something to do.
Go ahead. I was going to say it's good to give an explanation, just in case I disagree with you. You can at least kind of convince me to your way of thinking.
Okay, so one of the reasons why it gives me something to do, I had the best triceps I've ever had in my life after the PCT, and now I've just got I've got a bird tattoo here, and it's my Flappy Bird. So 1, nice workout. 2, a variation of things to do. 3, I'm a drummer, so it was just like super fun to tap and walk and get in rhythm, and you really feel like you're this like. At first, it's kind of awkward as you get your rhythm going, but I just feel like I can't hike without that motion, and I feel like you get kind of lost in the mantra of the clicking and the clacking, the click clack mantra.
That's great. I've heard a lot of explanations as to why to use trekking poles. This is the first time I've heard, it's great for the triceps. I mean, really defined triceps. You want to impress the ladies?
Michelle Obama
or the guys.
I had Michelle Obama arms right here. Nice. You never know.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2 from set B. Let's go with, does pineapple belong on pizza? One of the big issues out there.
Yes, absolutely. I think, let me get on my pundit hat and let me give my opinion, because now this is like CNN, Fox News. Like, this is what matters. Like, we've got 2 talking heads. Let me talk over. I think we should have a couple more people just arguing and just getting nowhere. It's like a news circle jerk, and circle jerk, because in the end, I'm still a jerk. I think pineapple on pizza. Let people have fun. It's okay. It's okay to enjoy life. People enjoy it. Tomatoes are fruit. Pineapples are fruit. Get over it.
Okay. It's okay to enjoy life right there. I mean, that right there could be a pro tip. I hope that wasn't the one you were holding on to.
That was. I told you, the C word. We can't keep bringing it up. I'm
Okay.
going to keep referencing the C word so that you have to put it in the beginning of the podcast.
Oh, here we go. All right. Question number 3. Let's go back to set A, and
Okay.
let's go with your preferred shelter system. Are you a tent guy, tarp, hammock, bivy, or hey, let's just cowboy camp?
I started off as just like the typical, like right out of like the REI mannequin, just like right out of the store. And I was like all about setting up the tent with the rain fly. Like I'm in the desert with the rain fly. That was one of my biggest regrets near the end of the trail was just, I wish I would have cowboy camped more. So one, especially for the first part of the hike, ha enjoy life, have some fun, be under the stars. You'll never be in it. Like, well, I'm a straight white man, so you'll never be in a safe place like you are in the PCT. I never had to fear anything, but that's because I don't know, a lot of privilege. I shouldn't laugh about that, but enjoy it. It's nice and open. And then as soon as we got into Northern California, Oregon, and Washington, I wish I just had one of the Z Pack, just really easy to set up hiking pole tents. I ended up breaking my hiking pole on that geyser death chute. So it actually did save me, but I'm really glad it didn't have, I'm glad I had a freestanding tent, but I really only needed the freestanding tent like once or twice. Um, what's the big hotel at the end with the brunch? God, I'm not
The
articulate today. I apologize.
the Overlook.
Yes, I was at the Overlook, and
That's
well,
the
I know it's
setting.
not the actual
The
Overlook.
setting of the Shining. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, it felt like that for me because it was so windy and it was just nuts. That was the only time I really liked the freestanding tent. Other than that, I am kind of free. It's like when you're in an interview and you kind of forget what the question was and you just kind of ramble. I'm at that point right now, so I'm just going to kind of abandon this and let's move on to the next question.
Okay. Okay. Fair point. Question number 4. We'll go back to set B. Here we go. This is a big one. People wrestle with this. I know during the holidays, even. I mean, this could be good holiday dinner table conversation. Do you roll the toilet paper over or under?
It's definitely got to be over. My dad always puts it under, and this is like we're here to unpack my issues with my dad. I know, but growing up, I don't know if it was out of laziness or spite, or if like he just like slowly wanted to like it's like Chinese water torture in terms of just psychological unpacking that we'll have to do. But he always puts it under, and I always brought it up, and he would just give it like a smirk, and he'd be like, "Oh, I didn't notice, sorry," and it just always did it. So now I'm like adamantly over.
He was contrarian. He because somebody else wanted it over. He deliberately said, "I'm going to do it under."
Well, from my asshole to him being an asshole, and we could even go with the under joke, but again, I already we got the E. I'm going to leave it at that. I've said too much. I'm forcing this. This is terrible. I told you this is going to be the worst podcast you've ever had.
I am glad that we're able to help you address some of the lingering issues with you and your father. All right. Question number 5. When you're out there on the trail, when it comes to food, do you prefer a stove, cold soak, or stoveless?
I think the people who are cold soaking are sociopaths, and I don't know what they're doing out here because thank you. Okay, finally, I think we're in alignment
Yes,
because
you've gotten one right. That's right.
the one thing I looked forward to and got me through those extra couple miles at the end of the day was a hot meal and just dump it into my body and then go to sleep. I did wake up every single morning with like intense level 10 diarrhea where I was just like, I need to count down from 5 or it's going to happen. Like this is going to be the most expensive poop bag in the world is my like ultralight Z-Packs sleeping bag. But every morning I was like, I'm pooping in 10, 9, 8. And because I have this stupid freaking tent and I have to run out and dig my cat hole. I did a lot. I had a lot of shameful, I was not the good cat hole person. Never take my advice on building or doing like, I've had to apologize a lot on I would check gut hooks. Like, honestly, I would check gut hooks like once a week and go back to like previous comments to make sure that people didn't see my cat holes or see the like just chaos that I've left behind.
Shame. I think I may know where the problem lies there. You talked about building a cat hole. You don't build a cat hole. That's like erecting a structure, right?
Yeah.
You want to go the other direction.
No, it's like catching a fish. You have to like build up all those like currents together, and then you just shit right in the little house because you're trying to build that little John Muir hut everywhere you go. That not everybody does that. You didn't do that.
Shame, shame. All
Jam,
right.
jam.
Question number 6. Back to set B here. This is one that kind of goes to the root of societal degradation. Do you
Okay.
use the Oxford comma?
Yes, big fan of the Oxford comma, and big fan of Vampire Weekend. I was a teacher for 8 years. I didn't teach English language. I taught to English language learners, so they think I'm like an English god, the green god, if you will. But always use an Oxford comma, always teach it. Read a thing from David Foster Wallace about how grammar is trying to control and how grammar can get like really, it shapes the way you think. I don't know why. It's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know why I'm teaching you this, but this is the right way to do it. I'm not smart enough to know the explanation, but I'm smart enough to like push them into the right direction to have the right explanation, which Oxford comma objectively is the correct way to go.
If David Foster Wallace said it, I mean, that's it's
Yeah,
David
there you
Foster
go.
Wallace, David Wallace Foster, Wallace David Foster. I
I'm gonna go with Wallace David Foster. It's easy. It rolls off the
okay,
tongue. You can
yeah,
say it
yeah,
fast. You
nice.
could say it 10 times fast. We could just go back and forth and just keep mixing up his name.
Hmm.
I don't know. Have the mushrooms kicked in for you? Because they definitely kicked in for me. David Foster Wallace. 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 Commas.
All right, question number 7. Here we go. Last question in the survey. Life is better above or below the tree line?
Above the tree line. I'm a mountain guy, and Bogota is like 8,000 feet up. I lived in Colorado. It's better above the tree line. And I know you wanted to get deep and philosophical, but I'm taking this literally above the tree line. But
Set
I'm
B was
like,
the philosophical question. Set A is just hiking questions. You don't have to get too deep on that.
oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
I'm like Sancho Panza. I'm like right against the ground until it comes to, well, I'm a short is basically what I'm saying. That would have a little bit more comedic impact if you could actually see me because I look tall because I position my camera like that. But I think it's an insecurity about being short. I like to be above the tree line.
Got it. Got it. All right. Hey, Shane, I've got to do some math here. I need to take your answers. I need to put them through the John Freaking Muir Pod algorithm and see where you fall on this. So bear with me. I got to carry the 3. We're gonna multiply by root 2, and then divide by pi. And we're gonna adjust for just the right level of comedic timing since we're talking to a comedian. And I come out with an answer of a score of 48. Just below
Nice.
the central line, but you're
Below the
not
tree line.
yeah, just below the tree line, just below.
Fuck. You're just doing that to mess with me. Yeah, I'm kind of a dumb guy. So I'm okay with that.
All
48.
right,
If we're doing it on an average scale, that's fine.
yeah, and you know what? That score has the potential to adjust as we continue the interview here. It could go up, it could go down. So
Going down.
yeah, down the death chute with the 2 red streaks and the 1 brown streak. All right. Hey, before we get too far down the trail, Sham, let's talk about your background. Where'd you grow up? How did you get involved in the thru hiking cult? I'm particularly interested, and you alluded to it earlier, particularly interested in when you first became aware that there was such a thing as a trail that went from Mexico to Canada.
My wife's gonna hate me for name dropping her, and hopefully she doesn't. I used to date a girl named Sarah Marshall. Yes, like the movie. As soon as we broke up, everyone was like, just forget her, just forget her, just forget her. It was like a great way for the next 2 months to constantly be reminded that we broke up. But speaking of that girl, we have left. So I grew up in Minnesota. What's wrong with me? Grew up in Minnesota. Went to school in Kansas. Hell yeah. Uh, was hired in Denver. I worked for ABC Television doing advertising sales for them. And then she wanted to leave to Guatemala and become a teacher at an American school or at like a embassy school. So pursued love, went and pursued Sarah Marshall. One of our summer breaks or one of our winter breaks, the movie Wild came out. Our whole family went to see it, and I just was floored. I loved the journey. I loved the story behind it. as I mentioned before, it was just me and all these divorced women became just like instant Reese Witherspoon fans. And I was like, I want to be Cheryl Strayed. She's my new hero. So I kind of just tucked that in the back of my brain of like, if I ever move back to the United States, that's what I'm going to do. After Guatemala, I got hired in Colombia. I lived here for 3 years. I was going to Bangladesh. I had signed a contract. I was going to teach at their embassy school. COVID-19 hit. Bangladesh was probably one of the last places I wanted to be during a global pandemic, highly densely populated, really bad air pollution. I know, right? It shows my true character and my commitment. But reneged on my contract, and I had a year in front of me, and I was like, I'm going to hike the PCT 2021. 2021. There we go. I got it. Designed this learning pod because it was still kind of pandemic online teaching. So utilized my skills as a teacher, just worked with 7 different kids, 4 first graders, 2 third graders, and a 4th grader. It was like a cross between Little House on the Prairie and Fight Club, because you can't talk about being a learning pod. It was technically against the law. And I was just making captions to the table. And I wasn't making the kids fight or anything. But that's another thing that we're probably going to have to unpack later. Dump it. Let's move on. So I was saving money.
The first rule of Learning Pod is we don't talk about Learning Pod. Got it.
Don't tell your kids. Do not tell your kids. Which is generally, as a teacher, that is the 100%. You can never say that. Like, don't tell anyone. Anytime a teacher says that to a student, the rest of that conversation and that relationship is definitely problematic and under question. But saved up enough money. I got my permit. I remember sitting online. These kids were like yelling at me. They're like, "Mister, we want to go outside." Blah 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 blah. I'm like, "Shut up, kids!" I was waiting in line, like my little like hiker, and then some random stranger out of Reddit, because I got such a late bid. I posted on the PCT group, and I was like, I'm never going to get this. And somebody just DM me. They're like, "Hey, I've got 3 numbers. Take mine." I was like, "Yeah." So I got the date that I wanted, saved up enough money, and kind of jumped into it on a whim based on a movie.
That's awesome. And I love the image of you waiting to get your number, your permit, and the kids are like, "Hey, we want to go play." And you're like, "Hey, priorities, buddy. Sit down. We're doing this. I'm going to get the number."
I'm waiting in line, kids. I'm digitally waiting in line. I've also, like, I had to do like a parking ticket trial. And I remember I was sitting there with like the judge who was like, "Why did you park there?" And like all the kids were running around. I was like, "Hey, I'm a teacher." She's like, "Oh, you're a teacher? All right. Don't worry about this parking ticket." But it was always fun to picture. It's just me sitting there on a computer, like, because I'm sitting in like their childhood stuff. So I'm like in a little plastic chair, and I'm a short guy, so it wasn't that comedic, but it's funnier if people don't know how short I am. But kids running around, chaos. Oh,
all right.
Good times.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back from the break, we're going to get down into the nitty gritty of your 2021 PCT hike. And we're going to dig in a little bit more into what we alluded to earlier. And I think you've mentioned a couple times your comedic status. You're a comedian, and you actually walked 2,600 plus miles to your first stand-up gig. So very interesting story coming up. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And welcome back. We were talking to Sean Powers, aka Shame. Went through our opening segments, talked about some gear, did a very interesting hiking poll, and now we're going to get to the nitty gritty of his PCT hike in 2021. So you decided that if you ever had a chance to go back to the U.S., you're going to do the PCT. What kind of prep did you do to get yourself ready for this?
A lot of walking, stretching. Nothing really. Like I had 2 goals in mind. One was obviously hiking the PCT, which is an insane thing to even conceive. And like I just kept reading online and from other people, like, don't worry so much about training. You train on the trail. So tried to walk. This is like middle of winter, but as much as I could, like 10, 15 miles, just like in snow. But also one of my goals was to be funny, be good at writing, be good at like explaining my experience to people who might be thru hikers, might not be thru hikers, and trying to find that balance of like classroom differentiation. Like, how do I communicate to a group of people that might know a little bit about this and might know a lot about this? So insanely tried to do two really complex things. Fortunately, they both worked out. And I would say, yeah, just like typical trying to hike as much as I can, but Minnesota is the flat, like worst state for hiking. So I quickly realized that first like week, everybody would tell you this, but just completely kicked my ass.
Now, I think it's pretty common that people who are planning to do their first kind of multi-day adventure out there, their first maybe multi-month adventure, they say to themselves a lot, and the people that they're planning on hiking with, hey, it's just walking. I mean, we're just walking. That's you kind of have this anxiety of the length of the trip, but really, we're just walking. Was that a common thought as you approach the start date?
Yeah, like that kind of stuff, like maybe want to scream at people. Um, because there's so much more that goes into it. And it's like I forgot I did the SHT, the shit walk, just full of SHT. It goes from Canada to Duluth, Minnesota. I think it's around 90 miles.
Superior hiking
Superior
trail?
hike.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 200 to 300 miles. And then I did Patagonia in South America. Um, Machu Picchu. I did a summer camp for 3 years, 3 different summers in Switzerland and Austria. So I did a lot of hiking out there. So little by like more or less, nothing to the extent of what the PCT could ever be, but those experiences help shape and help kind of push me into like, don't worry, it's just walking, you know?
Yeah. And at what point in the hike, or did you know before the hike that you wanted to do stand-up comedy?
I think anyone that's ever like successfully told a joke thinks I could do this. And I'm kind of one of those just like insanely stupid people who just jumps into things. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it full on. So raging pandemic is when I wanted to start my comedic career. And of course, I started on Zoom, which is like not a great medium at all to do comedy. But I found this one room where it had the feeling of like an open mic or a live open mic. So it was terrible. No, I'm kidding. It had an actual like good receptive audience on one side, really good comedians. And like, I really formed a bond during the, like really the lockdown with these people I've never met out of Bellingham, Washington. So then I was really into, I called it 3 pages. It's when you wake up right in the morning and you just start writing and you just write 3 complete pages, just stream of thought, just to get your creative juices flowing and like really help out with like any anxiety or problems throughout the day. And as I'm writing it, I remember, and I still have, I have the page flagged of the day that I came up with this is like, what if I walked to my first special? What if I walked to Bellingham? Bellingham is like so close to the end of the trail. I sent the idea like this to my friend Nathan, and he received the idea like this. And he was like, I love that idea. And I was like, I know, right? I'm the best. I'm amazing. And he's like, you're so amazing. But he was like, if you can walk here, I will do, because he's the show producer and he usually does live shows, but he needed to do something to keep his business going during the pandemic. So that's how we found each other. That's how I found like that friendship there. And I just pitched him that crazy idea, and he's like, forget it. By the time you get here, hopefully the pandemic's going to be over. Laughably, it's still not. But he said, I'm going to find you the venue. I'll help you with the tickets. And as I'm walking there, he's like, holy shit, you're getting closer and closer. I'm going to actually have to do this work. I didn't think you were going to follow through with this. So again, blacked out on the question. I don't know where I was going with this. Back to you, Doc.
When did you decide you're going to be a stand-up comedian? And so you've got the gig lined up. And you obviously, I mean, how far into the trip were you at this point?
The idea it was twofold. I'm going to do the PCT, but I'm going to walk to my first comedy show. So from like the inception of this,
okay,
through just like, I remember it was like the summer before I was going to leave to Bangladesh, and I kept talking to like everybody. I was like, I'm thinking of going to Bangladesh, but what if I just tried hiking? What if I tried comedy? And everyone who listened to me was like, stop. Like you clearly don't want to do option A. You just because you have a contract doesn't mean you have to go through with it. Like you're not an indentured servant. The school in Bangladesh didn't have a plan to get me there. They couldn't pay me till I was there. I had to work. It's 14-hour difference, so I'd be working all night. And I wasn't going to get the training that I needed. It was international baccalaureate, so IB school. So I wasn't going to get the IB training. So I was like, okay, you can't pay me. You can't provide a place for me to live or pay for like internet or anything. I have to work for, I don't have healthcare. They couldn't provide healthcare in the United States either. So I was like, I can't have healthcare in a pandemic. So it was really easy to get out of that contract. But that's when I decided
you're trying to justify leaving those kids behind and just, you know what, I am not going to help you. I've got other things to do, kids. There's a pandemic going on. You're not that important.
I've accepted my shame. These kids are really privileged. Like these kids they don't need me. I needed them. This was totally a selfish attention. I just needed 15 kids a day or 15 kids per class to just listen to my just shitty jokes. Sorry, swear. I decided I'm going to try it. So I downloaded a comedy book because I'm a nerd, and it ended up being Jim Gaffigan's Teacher. And I got, he was one of my favorite comedians, especially being from the Midwest. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I reached out to him. I was like, hey, super inspired by your book. I never knew how much how much science went into the art of like joke writing and how strategic it is and just how much work and time and brevity and just weighing of words and syllables and timing, everything. I was completely blown away. I just thought it was like a natural gift. So I reached out to him and he's like, hey, I'm doing an online class. Usually you have to be in New York. Do you want to take it? So I took his class, and then I just started doing online Zoom shows. I'd go to open mics if there were any. There was a couple like speakeasy type of open mics.
Rogue comedy houses.
Oh, rogue comedy house. Only the true comedy fans would go, or the people who didn't give a shit about COVID. Parallel, it feels like it's like in hindsight, it's hard to figure out when the inception of an idea started, but everything kind of came together, and I was like, this marks the perfect like chapter of my life where I can take a break from teaching. I'm trying to do something like completely selfish, which is a thru hike, and completely selfish, which is pursue comedy while the world's kind of in a pause, and then kind of figure it out later. And I'm super glad I did it.
Nice. Now, Shane, how many, you think there's a higher percentage of stand-up comedians that come from the teaching ranks? I mean, they have an engaged audience 5 days a week. I mean, this is a chance to try out the routine, test things out. Did you know that Jeff Garmire, well, he's not a stand-up comedian. He is a substitute teacher. Jeff Garmire is, he did the triple crown, calendar year triple crown. Are you familiar with him at all?
No, I know most substitute teachers. I'm just not familiar with them.
No, Jeff Garmire is a thru hiker.
I got that.
Yeah, he's legendary. In fact, his trail name is Legend, and he's been on the podcast a few times. He's hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
I read
he's not
book.
Officially a stand-up comedian, but he should be. But I just marvel at the unique gift that those kids are getting when he shows up as a substitute in their classroom on some special day. So
some kids liked me. Some kids just couldn't. Either it was too cheesy, or like I brought up issues that they had with their moms and dads that just like didn't want to, like they're not emotionally ready to accept or express. And I'm also not at the point where I'm ready to emotionally accept or express. I took my job really seriously, but I like to have fun. And that was one of the biggest things that I learned. Actually taking kids, we took them out of the country. We did like a World War II trip. This was the kids in Guatemala. So we went to Germany, Czech Republic, and Poland. And I remember goofing around with the kids. They're like, Mister, you're never like this in class. I was like, what do you mean? I'm always like this. They're like, no, you're so serious. You're so strict. So I remember my first couple of years, I think I was compensating for my age, kind of my height, but mostly my age. So I kind of grew up my beard, and I was like pretty strict. And I was like, didn't inject my personality that much. And it was like one of those moments where it just like clicked, and I was like, I need to be myself. So every single year, not only did I get better, but my relationship with kids got better. And you've got a captive audience. Any teacher needs to recognize like there needs to be an element of entertainment in order to get the kids' attention. You're getting them to do something that they do not want to do. You got to get them to listen. But the hard thing is they always remember the jokes. They never remember the content or the analogies. Always. And like years later, kids reach out and be like, remember when you said this? And I'm like, yeah, but like, what was the context? They're like, I don't know. I didn't learn anything. I'm like, thanks. So maybe I wasn't a great teacher. I was just an amateur comedian.
I think that's
A
amazing.
professional babysitter.
I think that's amazing. You took him on a World War II field trip. You took him all the way back to World War II. I mean, just the technology involved there is phenomenal.
Well, they were pretty dumb kids. I just had to paint everything black and white, and it worked. They were like, "Wow, this is amazing."
All right. Now, your comedy, is it based on through hiking type stuff, or is it tailored to all kinds of different topics? Do you have a specific genre?
Well, I feel like a fraud. I'm going to turn my name from shame to fraud, or sham. I'm a sham. So just rearrange their letters. There we go. I'm a sham because as soon as I had 2 sold out shows, and as soon as it was done, my family went to both shows, and they came down and they were all like teary eyed, proud of me. I've never felt so good. And I remember at the end of that, I was like, I will be searching for this feeling for the rest of my life until I get an HBO special, until I get a full-time whatever, my own Netflix special. I got what I was looking for through the hike and through writing. So it started off as information about me, talking about me. I'm an egomaniac, but you got to find your voice somehow. So I'm talking about teaching. I'm talking about traveling. I noticed that it was really hard, especially in the Midwest, to talk about like my travel experiences, because I would just come across as this like pretentious douchebag. But I think I am a pretentious douchebag, so maybe my true colors were coming out. But your first time on stage are really awkward. You got to get through the poorly written stuff. You got to get through the bad stuff. And even a year and a half into my comedic journey, my comedic career, still everything eludes like newbie hack comedy, just like half-assed ideas. Like I knew that if I continue to pursue it, it takes about 10 years to become an actually good comedian. I could have gone down that road, but when you get into in your 20s, you think you can do everything. When you get into your 30s, you're like, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. So I was like, I could go down this route of comedy and be happy, but it's always chasing that high. And I got that high. Or I could start a family with the woman I asked to marry me, who I met in Colombia, and talking about kids together, a future together. I was like, that's the route I want. I got what I needed. I got my jollies out, and the show was designed to just share the experience of me through hiking. Jokes about through hiking to kind of prep people up, a few stories from the trail that would call back to the jokes. So it was like entertaining in and of itself. You don't have to be a through hiker, but you should, like, if you're going to watch it, that the jokes will resonate a little bit harder. I don't know. Jokes resonate hard, but
that came at me hard, bro.
Here we go. We're going to use the C word, and I'm not going to use it. I could read your face. I'm not going to go down that route, but started off about myself, about my experiences, and it just became exploratory. And I was like, this is a really fun way to tell my story on the PCT, to kind of leave that chapter, to put a bow on it. And as soon as I was done, I was just like, okay, I don't want to keep going down that route. I liked it. It was fun. I thought I was good at it. Now I'm going to go to this path in life.
Yeah. Some people finish a long through hike like that, and they write a memoir, or they record some YouTube videos and share that with the world, or they make they find somebody, they make a documentary. I've talked to each one of those types of people. I have not talked to somebody whose culminating event or a way to memorialize the event is someone who does a stand-up comedy routine. Did you have any jokes that really bombed?
Oh, absolutely. So many jokes. And I remember one of the ones, because I was surprised about the reaction, because I was doing the setup. And I was like, through hiking is one of the most selfish things you can do. But then I was expecting a few chuckles, but everyone kind of pulled back, which is opportunity for comedy gold, because you can really surprise them with the way in which you take that, and you've really captured their attention. But it felt like the rug was ripped right under my feet. That's the word I was looking for, feet. The rug was just ripped out right in front of me, and I was just move on. And I was surprised. I didn't know what to do. And I totally forgot the rest of my set. And I just kind of sat there for a little bit. And I was like, oh my God. And so I started to make a joke about it, and people could see the vulnerability, and it caused them to laugh. And I started making jokes about it, and it caused them to laugh. And I was like, oh my God, I remember. And like, the way in which I'm talking to you is the way I would do stand-up comedy. Is kind of a little bit all over the place. I had written it out from like beginning to end. This is exactly the set. This is the callback. Like the different people that I met as like stand-up mentors, my old stand-up teacher, different people I met along the way really helps. And they're like, wow, you are a writer. Because I feel like there's two comedy camps. There's those that go up and they write by doing it live. They go up with a few ideas and they figure out the wording and the structure, and they commit to memory by doing it over and over and over again and figuring it out live by seeing reactions. Then there's more of like, I would say the writing camp, and it's creating a story and creating a structure, which it could shoot yourself in the leg, because the moment that somebody stops paying attention just for a second, they might miss some vital information that you have as your callback. Or if you do any sort of like play with words, you got to make sure that everybody's paying attention the whole time, or it's just simple or direct enough that even if you're half listening, you'll still get the joke. So I'd say that time, and it screwed me, because as soon as I lost my footing, as soon as I lost my place, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I told a bunch of jokes, and then I found like about the situation, I started to tell other jokes, and then I realized that I got to a punchline and I hadn't told any of the prior jokes before. So I was like, oh my God, I completely messed it up. Let me start over. And like I did this whole like reverse thing. It did get maybe some pity laughs out there, but I thrive with pity laughs. So I was like, I'm going to take that as a win. Retold the jokes. It still got a laugh, and then just moved on.
That's like a worst nightmare, right? I mean, being up in front of a crowd, knowing that you've got something that you want to say, and completely drawing a blank. I mean, how uncomfortable is that? That's painful.
One of those things that you learn over the 10 years. Like you learn how to. Ralphie May is a pretty famous stand-up comedian, and he had this rule system where he has to have 10 points every time he did any stand-up show. He'd give himself 1 point if he came up with a joke on the spot. He'd give himself 3 points if he could rearrange his set and still get the same structure. And then 2 points if he came up with a new tag at the end of the joke of what he would say, and then a follow-up to get a couple more laughs out of that with that first joke. So I think it's one of those things where it's like, now I realize that you have to be just so relaxed up there, and just, it has to feel natural. If it feels scripted, people don't like it. But when it feels spontaneous, you just get these like boom laughs, and a professional comedian can trick the audience into thinking they're coming up with it on the spot. Because if you see a comedian and they usually do like 4 or like 2 sets or 3 sets throughout the night, and if you watch him every single time, the first time you're like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. And the second time you're like, every single improv moment he's planned, every single question, it's like a magician. They knew the workflow of how to get it to the joke, and then how to work with that. And just over years and years of having those awkward rug moments, you learn to thrive and actually want that authenticity. So debilitating, but a great teaching moment if I were to continue to pursue comedy.
Nice. Now you have your set written out ahead of time. You're not one of those guys that goes up there just to do some riffing up there. Hey, where's everybody from? Hey, anybody from Idlewild, or who's from Hikertown? And kind of going from that point.
I hate when that happens. I love when they're good at it, but it's just like, it's so cheesy. They're like, what next? What else? What else? What else? Where it's like, dude, like just fucking stop wasting my time, especially if you paid for it. If it's like an open mic where it's free, who cares? It's fun, and that's part of it. It's like part of the show. It's how they develop as well. But one of the things that I learned in the book is that there's a vast difference in when people come to a free show and when I was doing like my little trail shows, because every night I tried to do 5 minutes around the campfire, like not trying to be disrespectful. I'd be like, okay, anybody want a free comedy show? And people are like, yeah, like that sounds awesome. So I'd bring them over to a spot where people weren't sleeping and practice. And usually those went really well, but they're also thinking this is participatory. So they're like, I was like, dude, shut up. You're fucking up my timing. You're fucking up my flow, which is a great way to get better at your timing, your flow, and be able to work with that. But on the other side of things, when people pay for it, they have an expectation of like, you're professional. I'm paying. I got a babysitter. I'm out tonight. So what's the show?
Yeah, be good. And you know what? I felt a little bit of your pain right there, because in my mind, leading up to that last thing about riffing and anybody from Idlewild or Hikertown, I thought that was pretty funny. I thought I'd get a couple of chuckles from you, doing my own little comedy set here, but not even a smile as I delivered that.
That's because I was thinking about the next thing I would say. Like I said, I'm obsessed with myself.
That is great. All right. So it went very well in Bellingham then. You got
Yep.
your moment in the sun, and it really paid off.
Yep. I got my jollies out. And the other nice thing is I used my like sales background. I used my advertising skills to like call people, and I was looking for sponsorships. So just calling like random, like I would just pick up like the Bellingham Daily, and I would see all the advertisers in there, and I would just call and say, "Hey, I'm actually a comedian, and I'm looking for sponsors for my show." And they're like, "Oh, maybe next time." And I'm like, "What do you mean next time? I just walked from Mexico. I'm not doing this again. And this is a show about that." And they're like, "Well, actually, you kind of got me. Like, tell me more." And then I eventually got 6 people to sponsor, so it paid for the stage time, and it also paid for a lot of the marketing material that Nathan Bellingham Entertainment, shameless plug from Shame, um, that he spent. I'm sorry, yeah, just wipe that in post. Just delete that later. He spent a little bit of money like buying tickets. We got like a marquee. It was a really well thought out fun. I paid to people that were in the Zoom comedy stuff to open for me. We did a couple shows to promote it. It was a fun time. Yeah, I would say it was successful, but I'm biased.
You know, some biased. Some comedians, they have gimmicks. Some comedians have gimmicks. I mean, Gallagher, you know, he the Sludge-O-Matic out, and he'd smash watermelons and other things. I mean, your gimmick, I don't know how many times you can do it, is, you walk 2,700 miles to your comedy show.
I thought for a while, like on those painful days where I was like, am I just like an exhibitionist comedian? I was like, what am I doing out here? I was like, what's next? Am I going to swim to my next show? Do I have to like skydive into like an arena and start performing? And I was like, who the fuck do I think I am where I'm going to sell out an arena? But then I was like, my favorite band, Queens of the Stone Age, is like opening for me, but it's because I was listening to them, and I just have this like crazy idea that I can really do anything that I want.
I thought you
I
came
did
out
have
the
an
Dark
idea
Horse.
for.
I thought. I mean,
No,
Dark
no,
Horse was
not
playing on the stage when you walked out.
I can't afford Katy Perry, and that does bring up shitty memories, like pun intended there. But I got to come out to something like with a little bit more energy, and she'd steal the show.
Hey, you remember
You
the
kind
guy
of look like the guy
that,
from Queens of the Stone Age, by the way.
do I? Okay. Well, I certainly don't make his scratch. So, you remember the guy that jumped from the edge of the atmosphere, the edge of space?
Yeah, that's gonna be
your
that's gonna be like
your
me.
next gig. That's your next gig. You jump from that height, and you land right at the front door of the next comedy club, and you walk in.
We'll call it crashing.
Yeah. Nice.
What was I gonna say? Nah, who cares?
I threw you off. My apologies.
Oh, that's the only way I can get attention. No, you didn't throw me off. That was, dude, half of the like most of the comedy is coming from you anyway today. But I feel like that's the only way I can get attention is by doing crazy things. But hey, it got some people to buy tickets. It got some people interested. So maybe that I should be just a gimmick comedian. What's wrong with gimmick comedian?
No, right. Yeah. I mean, it probably bought a little sympathy too. I mean, the jokes are a little weak, but I mean, this guy did walk 2,700 miles to get here. So, I'm going to laugh. I'm going to clap. I'm going to make him feel good.
Well, like there's a certain point in the hike where like everyone gets slap happy and you just think like the weirdest things are funny. I remember like we had this contest to go to up to how many day hikers and just be like, hey man, you got to listen to this song, and you just give them your earphones and like authentic. You just like sit and wait, and they're like, yeah, this is great. Or like it was just the weird stuff that you find funny, or where you're just laughing so hard that you spill peanut butter all over your hiking stuff, and you're crying laughing over nothing. And it's because you're exhausted. It's because you have this shared experience. So I was like, Scared's going to get up there like some crazy mountain man and be like, you know how many shoes I went through to get here? And just like, whoa, like he is way too Ted Kaczynski. He's not funny.
Hey, Shame, that's where our listeners are right now. They are trauma bonding over this experience
yes.
right now. Yeah.
That was probably the best compliment I ever got from somebody who they said, hey, I heard about your show from another thru hiker, and I decided to like drive out to Bellingham. So I was like, that is fucking cool. We started talking. They're like, you articulated my experience. And I was like, that I don't care if it was like funny or not funny. Just like that was my goal. And to hear that unprompted from somebody, I was like, thank you.
Nice. Now, we heard about your slide down the death chute. Did you have any other type 2 fun experiences out there on the trail?
Oh, so when you get to Washington, you know how there's that right after like Rainier, there's that cabin. I think it's like it's named after somebody, but it's like the only cabin in Washington. Everyone's so excited to poop there. And I remember it was one of those moments where I finally got, and I have like a whole story about it, but just to make it fast, one of my worst experiences on the trail, I almost quit. I remember I called my mom and I was like, I'm done. She's like, you're so close. And I was like, it feels like when you're sending a message with low service and the phone message goes really quick and it stops and it just takes forever with that last little part. I was like, the PCT was that. And I got to this moment and I just didn't want to continue. But I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, I have to poop now. And it was like, I usually count down from 100, but I counted down from like 10. Because I was like, I got to get downstairs, run across, get outside. It's like wet and everyone's cold and it just sucks. And I got into the biffy and I pulled it up and it was like I just got blasted in the face with this like just poop smell. And I started to gag, and then when I started to gag, it just unleashed. Unfortunately, I had my pants down, but it was like the scene in The Exorcist, and it was just chaos. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And part of my gag gifts or like being gimmicky is that I had toilet paper with my face on it because I wanted to promote the show. And it had like Sean Power's comedy show and the date of the Bellingham show. And it's like I follow on Instagram for more on every of the little like pieces on this toilet paper. And the irony, or maybe it's not ironic, maybe it's like the Alanis Morissette version of ironic, but I had to clean up that entire mess with that entire roll of toilet paper with my own face on it. So it was like shame, just cleaning up shame and just dumping. And I ran out of toilet paper and I was like, I still have a while to go before we hit the next town. So I just used my buff and threw away the buff, but I was just mortified. And I washed my hands with like the rest of my Purell. Fortunately, was right after pandemic, so everybody's got hand sanitizer. Washed my hands in the cabin. I just made sure everything was clean. But like I went through like it was an hour of me just like the worst experience I've ever been, the lowest I've ever been at that point. And I got to a point with service, and I remember calling my mom. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Fortunately, I met two other a hiker named K-Pop or K-Town and a few other hikers, one named Stilts, that like really brought me back up and convinced me to go because I was like, nope, I'm gonna get this hotel room. One of my hiker friends, Sunshine, he's going to Whitman College, so he was actually like, hey, Shame, I'm like really close. We're gonna drive by. I was like, I'm fucking done. I've quit. And then the next day I was like, it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's kind of funny. But I remember every day until I finished that hike, I checked gut hooks on that cabin to be like, hopefully no one has seen my shame, the mark of shame, just like everywhere.
That is a story right there. That made me really uncomfortable at times. So
Yes,
I appreciate you telling that. Yeah.
I'm really good at making people feel uncomfortable.
Hey, Shame, you have to do yourself a favor, and listeners, write this down. Hit pause for a second. Get a pencil, a writing utensil of some sort. Write this down. If bathroom humor is your thing, I've got a great story for you. It was shared with me about 25 years ago. It is still out there. It is gold. Just do a Google search for Ryan's Steakhouse. Ryan's Steakhouse, and maybe throw in the tagline hot macaroni. Ryan's Steakhouse, hot macaroni. See what pops up. You should come up with a story about the move, and that's all I'm going to say at this point. That's enough. I don't want to spoil anything. Take a read of that. It is well worth your time if that is your kind of humor, because this is a story. Talk about being embarrassed. Talk about looking back at gut hooks and seeing if anybody else has written about this. It's kind of in a similar vein. So fantastic story. I've read it out loud a few times to friends. I cannot get through the entire story without crying I'm laughing so hard. I can barely get the words out at times. So it's, that after reading that story, you'll have a little more insight into the humor of Doc, but it's great.
I'm definitely going to check that out. I love that kind of stuff because it's that certain level of through hiker humor. It's just you say one word where you're just like, boop, we're connected, and it's just everything that person is when they're telling a story. You're just like you can't breathe. Like you're just laughing so hard, and so many people have so many of those stories. As soon as you get them talking about something like like a terrible experience, and I mean that's like really where comedy is born from. It's just like trauma, shame, terrible experiences. But let's look at it in a funny light, or let's look at it and let's use that to help us get through. And I love reading stuff like that. So I'm definitely gonna check out the macaroni steak story.
Yeah.
I wrote it down. Don't worry.
Yep. Terrible experiences, shame, perfect material out there on the trail because it's a unique phenomenon on the trail that you are talking to strangers who within 5 minutes of meeting you are telling you some of the deepest, darkest stories from their lives. I mean, it's unbelievable how quickly the connections are made and the stories that are shared out there.
That's like tenfold because I lived abroad for 6 years, and when you meet travelers, it's similar, where you kind of cut through a lot of the BS and you get right to more of like an authentic friendship, and those friendships last for like lifetimes. Through hiking takes that to an entire another level because you've got so much of a story is built into the experience of tell me the story of your name. Tell me what was it like at this place? Was it like there? It's really just it taps into our prehistoric times where that's where information was shared and stored. And one of my only like wishes that if I had a time machine is that I could do a through hike without the internet, or I could travel the world without the internet, because it really does pull people and forces people to rely on each other to get into vulnerable moments where they can't ask questions because there's a language barrier, and it creates this like level of human. You can't, I'm not smart enough to articulate it, but I can see you're nodding, so you get what I'm saying. But it's the same with through hiking, where you're your own source of entertainment, where it's great because you don't have service, and gut hooks is a fun tool, but it is kind of nice to just go into the unknown and just talk about what was your experience like at the death chute? What was your, did you see this creepy guy, or just kind of how trail gossip spreads? Really similar to herpes. Like it's basically the same, but it just explodes everywhere. At least that was my experience. I don't know.
Yeah, uncomfortable again. And I have a healthy respect for people who did these trails, the AT, the PCT, 20, 30 years ago, before you could carry the internet in your pocket. Just amazing the sense of adventure and striking out into the unknown that these people did. It's just absolutely mind-boggling.
Yep. And it was fun seeing a lot of hikers had done. I met a hiker named Happy, and he's 92. He's done this was his third time doing the PCT. He did the AT 3 times, and he just did the CDT twice.
Wow.
He was like, PCT is my favorite. And he was just telling every time, one, he was a teacher. Two, he like loved comedy. I'm a really big John Steinbeck fan, and so is he. So we've just kind of like geek out about that. So every time I saw Happy, of course, he's happy, but that's his experience with everyone. And when I found out that everyone had that experience, it kind of like hurt a little bit. It's like meeting your hero. You're like, oh, you're like this with everybody. But he would always tell us stories on the trail of like, we would go to phone booths, and there'd just be like 6 like mountains of quarters, because other thru hikers, one, they don't want to carry the weight, and two, that's the only like source home. It's just putting it in, punching in the numbers, and then talking and catching up. And he said like so many stories and things were shared. It's just like waiting in the line for the phone booth. And I was like, oh, that would be such a fun experience, where like when we go into town, we got to charge our phones, we got to message, we got to update social media, we got to upload our YouTube videos and tell everybody what we just saw, rather than just still living in that authentic, weird hiker culture moment where you're you then realize how smelly you are, dirty you are, and just out of place you look, and you really just don't care at that point because you're surrounded by other people who are just like, let them stare, but most people get it. It's like really the only places that don't are like Tahoe and a few others where they're just like, I don't know if you're homeless or on drugs or maybe a little bit of both. And it kind of was a little bit of both.
Nice. John Steinbeck, Grapes of Wrath, one of the greatest books ever written. So I'm with you on that.
That's all that needs to be said.
There we go. There we go. Hey, Shane, what's next for you? What's the next big adventure? Are we taking on the AT? Are we taking on the CDT? Are we doing the Great Western Loop? What's going on?
I had one idea, so I'll share my idea because this was going to be my pursuit for the next like 6 months is to sign a TV deal. And I had reached out just to Outside Magazine. The guy was like, if you could put together like a sizzle reel and this and that, I will pitch it for you and like help you with this. And it got to the point where I started calling people and just, I realized the like vindictive and just vulture nature, which is the entertainment industry, because everyone was just trying to nickel and dime me. I just didn't know enough about anything where they're like, oh, you need like 20 grand, you need 15 grand to put in a real sizzle reel. You're going to have to do the PCT again and refilm all this stuff so we can put together a mock. And I was just like, this is so much work. But the idea was to do the AT and to do it as Hiking to My Second comedy special, but I do each section with a different type of comedy. So the first section would be stand up with another stand-up comedian that we would, the whole episode would be probably like 200 miles or like 400 miles. So it's going to be there's a lot of material there, but I think edited together would make like a really entertaining 30 or 60-minute section of this is a professional and I'm teaching them how to thru hike and they're teaching me how to do stand up. The second would be voice acting and impressions. The third was going to be sketch comedy and creating like sketches. So it's not just about stand up. And then finally at the end, all of us do a show that we've planned in conjunction together at the end at either in Catan. I don't know. I'm bad with names. You already know. Yeah, I'm a sham. Catan or New York, but that was going to be what I wanted to pitch. And most people are like, interesting. I don't know if it would have a lot of appeal. And I was like, there's so much about thru hiking that people just don't know. And there's so much gold there. So that was the idea. I kind of lost steam because my next adventure is starting a life with my fiance Natalia. Pursuing that, I got a desk job. I went through the lowest of the lowest. I seriously undermined post-trail depression. I knew about it, but I didn't think how hard it would hit me and how much weight I would gain. I gained all my trail weight and then some back. It was a tough spot, and I planned this like month-long vacation in Guatemala with Natalia, and I spent like, kind of like the whole time down in the dumps thinking like, what am I going to do in the future? I spent the whole time in like existential worry, which everything about the trail, I got 6 months of bliss. And then I didn't know how bad it was going to be. So I was like, I don't want to do comedy anymore. I don't want to do the sketch show anymore. I'm just going to get a job. I just want to be the boring guy, like as like a character that the main character walks by, like just a glimpse, just an accountant, and just be happy at my 9-to-5 job. And then I started at a 9-to-5 job and I was like, get me the fuck out of here.
You've become Creed on The Office.
Also my favorite band, but yes, I've become Creed. Like just, no, I undermined your joke. That was awesome.
All right. You know, wait. I asked you, I was looking for the next adventure and way to bring us down into the sense of existential dread. I think it's a good place. That's a good place to move on to our next segment.
The pro tip insight of the week.
All right, Shane, here we are. We're towards the end of the episode. It is time to share some trail wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. What have you been holding back in store for us?
Oh my God, I just crumble under pressure. I would say you're going to meet people on the trail that planned every single moment. You're going to meet people on the trail that didn't plan anything. And within 2 weeks, the unplanners become the planners and the planners become the unplanners. You can think you can have all these boxes, but you're going to hate that food. you're going to think you have all this gear that's perfect. You're going to switch it out throughout your time there. And you're actually just going to stop caring about the gear at all. You're like, whatever, like I've gotten so used to this that nothing can, you feel unstoppable in terms of your gear. So it's just like all those hours and anxiety and plans, just what a waste of time. But all those anxiety hours and plans got me to the starting line and got me to actually go. But then for the non-planners, those that are just, oh, figure it out, I'm just going to do it, they'll quickly learn like, oh, shoot, I should have known X, Y, and Z. And they'll learn in a couple of weeks. So it just, there's never going to be a perfect moment. It's like seeing a train pass by and waiting for the right empty car to jump into. It's always going to feel too fast when you're looking down there or looking up here. You just kind of got to go for it. So that would be my tip is there's no perfect tent. Everybody's got different tents and that pretentious level of judging, and it becomes really gossipy and really like for the first 2 months, it's everybody's just judging each other. They're all looking, oh, he's got that. This is his level of hiking. Oh, he's got a stand-up tent. This guy's a joke. Or REI brand. What is he doing out here? There comes a point where that just like ego is shattered and that shell is shattered, and just do it. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't have the perfect plan. Have a little bit of both, but like kind of just find the middle way. Buddhism.
Love it. I love it. That's outstanding. So there you have it. That's it. This episode is just about in the books. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Shame. I want to thank him for joining us this week. Sean, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures and your next comedy show?
I would love if people followed me on Instagram. It's Sean Powers, all one word, but you have to type out all one word. And
that's literally it. It's Sean Powers, all one word. You have to include all one word in the title.
And it's like a lone word too, with 2 L's, but Sean Powers, all one word. And it's really hard to explain that to people because they'll type in Sean Powers. I'm like, no, all one word. There it is, all one word. No, it's like, you have to add all one word. Like, I don't even know why I'm adding you. And I'm just like, forget it. And you move on. Your
Instagram handle is a long form joke in itself. I mean, that's awesome.
And then YouTube is the same. I had my comedy special behind a paywall, but really only like my mom and my relatives bought it. So I might as well just give it up to the world. So you can find me on YouTube, same thing. Sean Powers, all one word, all one word. Not Sean Powers, all one word, but like Sean Powers, all one word. Stop.
Got it.
Search. Enter.
Got it. I also have to say that you are one of the most expressive guests with your hand gestures that I've ever had. Your hands have been in motion for the entire time that we've been talking, which is just fantastic.
Very handsy guy.
Handsy guy. And now
I make people uncomfortable, and I'm very handsy.
Those are good things to have in a teacher. That's awesome.
Touching the future.
Oh boy. Okay. Hey, remember to check out the pod on social media as well. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com. And I don't say this often enough. johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com does not have a G in it. It's John Freaking Muir. It's like, the cool version. johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com.
Freaking Muir.
The Adventure Media Recommendation.
All right, Shame. I'm also looking to you to share a recommendation for a book, movie, documentary, website, something out there about outdoor adventures that's going to keep our listeners connected to the trail in the off season. We call this our Adventure Media Recommendation. What do you have for us? Any recommendations other than Wild? I don't know if you're planning on going with Wild since it was such a big inspiration. Do you have anything else?
I know people in the AT hated Bill Bryson. I really like that. I like his book, and he didn't even do it, but who cares? He articulated it really well. It was a fun read. I actually wouldn't recommend that one. I should have prepared this. Andrew Skirka, I don't know. Do you want the answer that I should give you, or do you want to answer that? Okay, this is the one I would give you. If you're doing a thru hike, listen to Hardcore History by Dan Carlin. That is the best use of just like 18 hours of your life, and he just keeps you going and entertained. And I was a big people love, I love nature, I love walking around, I love being distracted. No, I'm totally into distractions, content, fill up my day. I don't want to have to think in my own thoughts. So just like completely wiped my consciousness. Hardcore History, one of the best podcasts that I listen to on the PCT. Besides the John freaking Muir without a G podcast. There you go.
Nice. That was a little bit of whiplash there. I wasn't sure which direction we were going. We started with Bryson, we went to Skirka, and landed on Hardcore History. That was quite a ride.
There you go. I told you I'm the epitome of a throw up, just all over the place.
Okay.
What have we not asked you?
And before we wrap things up, one more segment for you called "What Have I Not Asked You That You're Dying to Tell Us About?" What did we miss today?
I don't want to be like annoying and talk about the special. I would love if more people watch it just because you would enjoy it. I had one of the worst and most awkward experiences, and one of the most trail drama experiences. So I told the poop story, and I also told the I don't know. I told a lot of the stuff. I'm just forcing my own content in. I think you asked me enough, and I think I talked too much. And did I talk about myself? I don't know. We'll have to review the tape because I love watching myself as well. So I'm definitely going to watch this. At this point, I'm just kind of rambling and searching for an answer to buy time. And have I left you with anything that you're like, the fuck are you talking about? One. And two, did you get dropped on your head as a kid? And the answer is yes. Here, I have a big scar. Over here, here, and here. And I've had 3 concussions. So I think this might lead into why I'm so like a short fuse. But yeah, I'm a short circuiting person. Anyway, what was the question?
Actually, I have a follow-up question. Shame. I think there's a lot of uncovered ground here, and I would love to have you back on the podcast when you have some more time, and we'll do a follow-up. We'll explore this a little bit more. What do you think?
That'd be fun. I would love that. This was a great. Jesus, I'm the worst. This was really fun. I love talking about you, but it just goes to the fact that I love talking about myself. So if people like this, you might just delete it. But if people like this, I would love to be back on it. And I would love to share more stories. And I want to learn more about you. I want to know more about your name. Have you done thru hikes? What thru hikes have you done? What would you do differently if it's your tool? I want to know more about you.
You know what? I love this. Maybe we do a second episode and you are the host and you interview me.
Let's do it. You might just be like, this is the worst idea ever midway through, but we'll have fun doing it.
Okay. Well, that is a wrap from the John Freaking Muir studio. Any shout outs to friends and family, Sean?
Shout out to my fiance, Natalia, my mom and dad, sister, brother, new baby, Noah, Maddie, sister-in-law, any friends and family decide to listen to this, because on my end, those are probably the only people that are going to listen to it anyway. And shout out to you. Thank you for doing this. It's really fun. It's fun reliving these stories, and it's fun talking to people about the trail. I really miss it. And it's making me like, oh, it's lighting that fire. Oh, there we go. It's lighting that fire in my belly again.
Are you showing me the sweater, or are you showing me the unusual patch of hair on your chest?
Which one do you want to see? Both are pretty lit. That was stupid. I'm sorry.
All right. Hey, thank you for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you just left 2 red streaks and 1 brown streak down the length of the death chute. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.